What up? It's Quentin, Idget Reads and Rambles, just back from the gym, the man with the protein shake, and I'm gonna tell you guys what the best reads of last year were. And as we all know, for lists of these kinds, they are absolutely objective, and if you say anything contrary, then I suggest you delete your comment and microwave your device before the authorities find you. But let's go. Okay, so I'm gonna start with a bunch of runners up. And then I'm just going to talk the top 5, which are actually a top 6, because, I don't do rules, right? Anyways, runners up, I will have No One Writes Back by Zhang Yun Jin. That is a really good novel. It's just, there was a little bit missing in the big reveal at the end, because it seemed kind of out of place and, I don't know, attached, like added on, you know what I mean? Story of the Eye, that's a really good one about sort of a philosophy of transgression. Why transgress? What do we learn about ourselves when we transgress? You've heard this before. I discussed it in Whatever Day Reads video. One thing, I seen a post from Plagued by Visions, and a guy who is like the transgression man on BookTube, insofar as I can tell. He said that it's intentionally funny, and looking back on it, it is. It's hilarious. A lot of that book is so freaking funny, but it's not meant to be taken that seriously. Although it is like this, this philosophical work, I think, right? Next, Beauty and Sadness by Yasunari Kawabata. I plan on rereading it and doing a discussion, so I'm not going to say a bunch here. Of course, that discussion will be in 6 years. So read it yourself and let me know what you think. It is everything good about a Kawabata book. It's incredible. I mean, what do you really say about it? He's got some really passionate characters, some really good characters. I love Kaiko. I think her name's Kaiko. I keep wanting to call her Maiko because I'm reading Masks right now, and I'll do a video on Masks, and Masks is quite good. But yeah, I'm very excited to get around to that again. Incredible novel. Kawabata will show up again on this list. I read that right at the start of the year, before I had a channel. Next, When Adam Opens His Eyes, I thought this thing was incredible. It was just a nice, overblown, philosophical, there's such a philosophical novel, great pacing, probably some of the best pacing I've read all year, where the end of the book is such a climactic, deafening gut punch that is... it punches you in the gut and it deafens you. I mean, metaphor is McGee over here, but it's yeah, it's really good. I thought it's a nice sort of reflection on the postmodern condition. It's interesting. Don't agree with it. Same with Story of the Eye, but there's a lot of interesting stuff going on. Next runner-up is Porcupines and China Dolls by Robert Arthur Alexie. I'll have a video out on this soon. The writing could use a little bit of work, I'm not gonna lie. There is one particular scene, the disclosure scene, towards the end, I thought was horrifically overblown. Not overblown, when Adam opens his eyes, overblown in this really relatable, I'm a child and I just want everything to be so dramatic, type of way. But Robert Arthur Alexie's book is overblown in a really cartoonish way when men are disclosing some serious information, and I understand who he is, and again, he can write about this subject any way he wants. Look up Robert Arthur Alexie, please. He is an incredibly important figure in the indigenous Northwest Territories stuff. This is a great book, but that scene, I think, cheapens it, and it cheapens what the men are disclosing, and it cheapens... I understand that it adds tension, but I'll talk about it in a full video. This is a really good book, though. It is such an amazing and detailed sort of image of what residential schools really accomplished. How with a residential school, they were not only making people learn different things, they were erasing an entire way of knowing the world by getting in between parents and kids. And after multiple generations, there's a sort of cultural trauma that's built up that is explored here in HD precision, but also through a myriad of techniques that I'll discuss in a video. Very good book. Again, the writing could use some work, but what the book accomplishes, I really can't take much away from it. Sorry, you got pages here. Anyways, next one is Half a Lifelong Romance, probably one of the 3 or 4 best narrative experiences I've had all year. When Adam Opens His Eyes is another one, and then the top 2 are some of the best narrative experiences I've had all year. Half a Lifelong Romance is incredible by Eileen Chang. It is a work about kind of love, what happens when we don't pursue a love, what can happen, how this old love can just kind of die with misfortune. And misfortune is putting it lightly. Eileen Chang is a brutal novelist. She's also talking about the way that people, in order to further their own private ends, their own greedy ends, will basically stifle their humanity. They will become inhuman, and they will just totally sour their life, the world. It is also about Chinese history. There are some amazing ways of framing chapters. Like there's a chapter where somebody says, "Oh yeah, this person's sharpening knives out in the alley. Go do that." And then someone leaves, and then a scene happens, and then the knives are finished being sharpened at the end. Very tiny things like that make me fall in love with this book. It is incredible. Please read Eileen Chang's work. I do enjoy this probably a wee bit more than Naked Earth, but Naked Earth is incredible as well. Also, the MYRB edition of Naked Earth is immaculate. Half a Lifelong Romance, Eileen Chang, Porcupines and China Dolls, Robert Arthur Alexie, When Adam Opens His Eyes by Zhang Jung-il, Beauty and Sadness by Yasunari Kawabata, Story of the Eye by Georges Bataille, No One Writes Back by Jang Yoon-jin. All the honorable mentions. Oh, and No One Writes Back is actually hilarious too, because I did the first episode of the Rhubarb Chronicles on it, which was not one of my best videos. And I did a video on Half a Lifelong Romance, but it was poo-poo, so I tossed it away. Now, we get to the top 5. And immediately at number 5, excuse me, I crushed a shoulder workout today. But number 5 is 2 story collections that sort of accomplish the same. They're trying to accomplish very similar ends. One was directly inspired from the other. I'm talking about Yasunari Kawabata's Palm of the Hand stories. Amazing reflections packed with interesting character psychologies. It's very haiku. If you love haiku, read these stories. They are haiku to a T. They suggest things. They don't say things, they suggest things. But for some reason, all of the little images just linger in my mind. The idea of a woman waiting with her little coin to give a girl who's coming on her way back from somewhere with she is paying this little girl back with a coin for a silverberry that she's given her. And she's just waiting at the end of the story, waiting to give this girl the coin. I think that for some reason, that image of a girl just on her porch, just waiting, is etched into my brain for some reason. There are so many tiny stories in here. Most are like 3-4 page stories. They're very much like poems. There are so many tiny stories in here that just live within me, and the insights are very good. Sometimes he'll talk about sort of more historical stuff. Sometimes he'll talk about personal stuff. Sometimes the themes will just be generally about love, mono no aware, lots of it, and that type of stuff. It's not entirely objective, my reaction to this, and it's just incredibly well done stuff. But again, if you don't like Yasunari Kawabata, these are not going to convince you. There is not the emotional connection that you will get in his novels, specifically Thousand Cranes, Beauty and Sadness, Snow Country. Those are the novels of his that I've read. I plan on reading much more. You don't get that emotional connection, but what you do get is a series of images that will, again, just live in you like the best haiku. They are the quintessential Kawabata writing. He considered them his what do you say? If you had to pick any piece of writing that described his style the best, I think he said that it would be the Palm of the Hand stories, because they are all killer, no filler. They are peak Yasunari Kawabata in terms of style. Whether or not you like them is a different story. And then the other collection on here is The Atlas by William T. Vollmann. These stories are inspired directly, he says they're inspired by Kawabata's Palm of the Hand stories in the very start of the book. They are arranged palindromally, palindromally. It's a thematic palindrome. You have number 1 to 26, you have the title essay, the atlas, and then you have number 26 back to 1. And, each sort of, it actually does illuminate certain stories when you read 1 and 1 and 2 and 2 and 3 and 3. There's actually a very clear link between some of them. Some of it's a little deeper. But I didn't read all of this book. But what I did read was incredible, because it is just a type of pillow book that you have to, and he says it, he basically says, before you go to bed, read 1 or 2, and don't read them in order. Who cares about the order? It's not about the order. If you want to follow the palindrome, do that and go right to the middle. It's up to you, And all these stories kind of hinge on loneliness in some way. My particular favorites are Say It With Flowers. I love that. Have You Ever Been in Love? Stomach churning story. Say It With Flowers is very cute. It is about a guy and a prostitute who are in a bar and they are drawing a garden together. And she's deaf, and so they're drawing flowers on a napkin. Beautiful stuff. There's Have You Ever Been in Love, which is a stomach churning story. There is Bad Air, which is a reflection on the race riots in, I think, Los Angeles in the 90s. Really interesting stuff, and the people trying to come to terms with it. Again, most are tiny. The Prophet of the Road, another mind-bending story. I very much liked Look at Me. There's a whole lot of stuff in there that I think is very well done, but Fullman's concerns are more social and historical. He will do rewritings of his sort of, what do you say? He'll do rewritings of his other works. He does a rewriting of the Butterfly stories, multiple, I think. Some of the Rainbow stories, I think. I forget which one. There's one about a guy who is he's in like a flooded place, and he's looking for. I don't know. And anyways, he's. I'm sorry. I'm going all over the place with this, but there are so many stories in there that have just etched themselves into my brain, like Kawabata. But again, they're very different. You might be interested in that if you're interested in Volman. If you're new to Volman, definitely get that. That is a incredible primer on his work, since it deals explicitly. Like, he rewrites Fathers and Crows. He rewrites a lot of his stuff. So again, do that. Also, there's a story called Under the Grass, which is harrowing, but I understand why he wants to. Sorry, a tidal wave is hitting my house. I understand why he wants to sort of shroud this memory of his. It is the memory of the girl that has drowned, and he was supposed to be watching her. He's shrouding this memory in so much metaphor, in so much symbolism, that it's very tough to read. But once you kind of crack it, it's earth-shattering. It's tough. Every place there's a I think sorry, I'm stuttering. A gazetteer, a gazette, where it shows all the places that he's been, and there's stories set in the sphere of stars and limbo and stuff like that. It's really interesting. A lot of imaginative writing in there too. Eddie's very nice too. Anyways, I have to stop talking about that because those are very good books. The next one, I am going to do the Tramp Steamer's Last Port of Call. I have a discussion in the Whatever Day Reads series where I discuss this, and that is a particularly funny episode in the Whatever Day Reads series, because you can tell that I'm not reading with my brain. I'm reading with my heart in that series, especially because the passage I quote from Kyu Miao Jin was very, I don't know. It wasn't the best passage in the book. It was probably one of the worst in terms of the style, but it was actually very emotionally impactful anyways. Anyways, what's going on with this book is that it is a love story. And like the rest of the McCroll novels that I've read the first 4, every sentence is loaded with some kind of insight, or it is very poetic, or the story it's telling is just very hypnotic, entrancing, meditative. It's a really interesting work. It is about the titular tramp steamer, and it is the compiler. Every time he sees the tramp steamer, he has an intense solidarity for the ship, and he has an intense sort of feeling for this tramp steamer that I definitely share. I see it as like a symbol of the human condition, kind of. These are all existential novels, by the way, philosophical existential novels. But the tramp steamer, we meet a sailor named Joan Ituri, and Joan Ituri is basically trying to, how do you say it? Joan Ituri is dating Warda Bashur, Abdul Bashur's sister, one of McCroll's henchmen, I make the same mistake in that video. One of henchman is Abdul Bashir. Sorry, words are escaping me. The point is, he's dating Abdul Bashir's sister, and Abdul Bashir says something along the lines of, when this relationship ends, or when the ship ends, the relationship ends. Wow, I need to shut the hell up. And lo and behold, it does. But every time we see the ship through the compiler, what happens is we see it at an incredibly important point in the romance between Warda Bashir and Joni Turi. And there's so much in there about language, about why we use language, about romance, about the human condition, that this is very much an essential Macroll novella. It is incredible. Please read it. Next. An Unfortunate Woman by Richard Brautigan. I limited myself to one Richard Brautigan book in this video because I think I technically read Wilderness Bowling Trophies, which would have made the list, actually. It would have made the list. It would have made the runners-up for sure. But An Unfortunate Woman, I read this twice this year, and this was freaking incredible. It is one of Brautigan's most personal books. Do not start your Brautigan with this or with So the Wind Won't Blow It All Away. You have to understand his method to understand like what's going on. It's an I novel, but it is very indirect. The narrator is constantly talking around everything, but it, for some reason, is hilarious. It is one of his funniest books, I think, but it's also one of his most moving in a really weird way, where if you're accustomed to authors like Kawabata, authors like Fumiko Inchi, these Japanese authors that are they explore things in an indirect way, you will totally fall in love with this book, I think, because the book is very indirect. You can't tell what the narrator is trying to do, and it performs its theme like some other books that I've talked about, namely The Recognitions. It performs its theme in a way. It's really interesting what he's doing with this book. So I would highly recommend you check it out. I don't want to tell you much more, but please do read An Unfortunate Woman. It is an I novel. I probably mentioned that. And I'll link to the video. I did. The next novel, well, what would it be but The Blind Owl? This is number 2. Yeah, 2 Blind Owl by Sadiq Hediat, 3 Unfortunate Woman by Richard Brautigan, 4 Tramps Steamer's Last Port of Call by Alvaro Mutis, and then Kawabata and Volman at 5. The Blind Owl is a fascinating book. I actually uploaded what I think is a really good video on it, and the only thing I wish I knew while reading the book was that the girl is a symbol for ancient Iran. That would kind of change a lot of my analysis, my reading of the book, right? But it's incredible. It's damn good, man. The prose is on point. The prose is so poetic. So many M dashes. Get yourself the edition with the M dashes. It really does, I think, change your sort of view of the book. There are sentences in that are etched into my brain. The nights were something was like eternal nights, thick and compressed. Like describing a night as thick and compressed. Like, who thinks of that? But it's kind of true to your experience, to my experience of it anyways. Some nights are kind of thick and compressed, and I can't even make sense of it. It's damn good. I'm gonna link to the video. One of the things I love best about it is just how well Sadiq Hediat depicts psychosis, and he props the narrative on really weird, on shifting grounds that are, you just can't make sense of it. And it's a visceral physical experience. It's a painful book, but the painful uncertainty of the book is kind of the key to the psychosis of it. And the psychosis is harrowing, but man, it is exactly true to at least my experience in the past of psychosis. And yeah, the best. Definitely one of the best novels I've read this year. So what could be better than that? The Tale of Genji can be better than that. This thing is a brick. It is a hypnotic read. It is funny. It is devastating. I settled it. Is settled the word? I accused it. Its central message of being love hurts. That is cheapening it. big time. It's the one part in my Genji video I'm like, ah man. But it is agony. Love is agony. It is damnation. I also love what these characters' identities do with that love. There's a huge sort of focus on what do the women do. People actually consider the women to be the main characters of the book and not Genji. It kind of makes sense to me actually, because so much focus is on what the women think and what the women sort of how they are rationalizing this relationship with Genji, and what they do, how they change their own identities in response to him. There's a lot of interesting stuff going on with that, but I have discussed this book enough in that video. I really enjoy it. It is a hypnotic reading experience, very meditative book, slow moving, episodic in the first half, and then once we get Kaoru, the entire second half just flows and flows and flows, and it is incredible. Best narrative experience I've had all year. Yeah, it's damn good. And once you read this, I would recommend reading this and then read Masks by Fumiko and Chi. I'll have a video up on that soon. That's a very good book. And when you read Genji, and you know who the Rokujo Haven is, and you understand the spirit possession scenes, and that's a great deal. That's a great part of this book, is the times where someone's spirit will possess another's. It's really interesting. When you understand how all that works, and you read Masks, it's huge. It's a big deal. And you understand Masks is kind of reckoning with the shadow that works like this, works from women like Murasaki Shikibu. It's reckoning with the shadow that they cast over all subsequent Japanese literature. And it's damn good. Please check it out. That's it. That's all. I hope you're doing well. What were your favorite reads from last year? And that's good. Thank God. Peace and groovy. And